Financial Argument. Follow us on YouTube.
Very special show for everybody today. Speaking to a wealth coach, a wealth advisor. Now, this is very important for everybody to listen to this entire interview today. Not only going to have the opportunity to connect with our guest directly, but he actually has a program that can help you as an individual grow your cash flow and grow your net worth. You're going to recognize his last name because it's the brother of Keith Neumeier, and our guest today is Tony Neumeier, author of The 7-Minute Millionaire, How to Think Yourself Rich. He runs Perpetual Wealth, a program to help individuals increase their wealth, as well as the website TonyNeumeier.com. And of course, we'll have the links there for you. We're going to have a chat just as if we're having a cup of coffee together today, guys. So if you are listening to this on the road or on your way to work, please enjoy. Tony, thank you for joining us.
Hey, Daniel, thanks for having me on board, and really excited to be here and talk to all of your people.
Well, hey, Tony, I really appreciate you joining us. Wealth and personal finance is something that I've been just passionate about my whole life, and I love talking to anybody who's like-minded, and you've obviously taken that next step where you're personally coaching and advising people, and you have a great story yourself. So let's start off with your book. It's The 7-Minute Millionaire, How to Think Yourself Rich. That right there, that's got to leave a lot of question marks for people. How do you think yourself rich?
Well, that's a good question, and it started off for me. Maybe I'll give you a little bit of history on how I got to the point of having this, what I call it, my 7-minute success secret, really. And it started off with me back in my early 20s, going through a very difficult financial time where I actually ended up being bankrupt due to some business dealings with some people that, I just didn't know what I was doing, quite honestly, when I was that young, and they weren't coaching me in a manner that helped me much, and the real estate market crashed, and ended up in a situation where I was really literally in a point where I was trying to decide whether I should feed myself or pay my rent. And so it took me a couple of years to really get my head sort of back on track or back into a point where, I was really going to be able to get my life where I wanted it to be, which was making a lot of money. And so I got back into selling real estate, and I started working with a mastermind group, and sort of got me in tune with, really originally how to work with people and how to be coached and how to coach people. And then from there, I learned about how important it is to align the conscious and the subconscious minds. And when I say that, what is happening daily for most people, or for all of us, is we're constantly being bombarded by exterior messages and programming, if you will, and that is getting into our subconscious mind. And if we allow it to continue without actually taking charge and control of what the messages that are going into our subconscious, they can actually keep us from becoming successful or as successful as we like. And so by taking what I call PPMs, or personal programming messages, and actually aligning your conscious thought with your subconscious thoughts, and using this like 3.5 minutes a day or so little technique of reporting or relating to yourself exactly what it is you want to accomplish that day and in your life, basically breaking your goals down into tasks, manageable tasks, and repeating them to yourself daily, twice a day, through these PPMs. And so that's what, when you ask, how do you think yourself rich? It's really about deciding what it is you want and aligning that conscious and subconscious being, if you will. So, I mean, I could go on about it because, as you know, I've written the whole book. So, but let me stop and let you ask another question potentially.
Okay, so are you trying to trick your subconscious mind? Are you telling your subconscious mind, I want to be worth $10 million? Or do you tell your subconscious mind daily, I am worth $10 million?
Well, okay, let me actually, one of the mistakes that people make in goal setting, if you will, and I talk about goal achieving as opposed to just goal setting, is that they create a massive goal for themselves, but they don't put into place the process in order to get there. And if you say, yes, I want to be, let's say, yes, I am worth $10 million at a specific date, but what we need to do, creating wealth is a process. It's not an event. And what I like to do is break everything down into processes so that people can actually achieve their goals that they set out to achieve. And the way that we do that is by saying, okay, yes, I'm worth $10 million by, pick your date, 3 years from now, 7 years from now, whatever that is. But what are we doing in the meantime to get there? Because a lot of people set those goals and then they don't put into place these manageable tasks. And so you need to break that down and work it backwards to a daily manageable task. So what is it that you can do today that's going to make you or take you a step closer to your goal of a $10 million net worth? And that's where the PPMs really come in, and that's where breaking down in my program, Perpetual Wealth, that's the first module, is really getting into figuring out exactly how you go about creating that process for your end goal of $10 million, let's just say. So I don't call it tricking your mind. It's a matter of having your subconscious believe what your conscious is what you're thinking consciously.
I've spoken to a lot of people who have made the decision and have said, I'm making the choice. I want financial success. I want financial wealth. And I'm not talking about like a retirement plan in 30 to 40 years. I'm saying like they want to do it in the next 5 years or 7 years. And one thing that they always bring up consistently, and something I can also relate to, is that because pretty much no one else around them is trying to do this or is even believes it can be done, like your parents, for example, or your close friends you've had in high school, what do you do with, should you be taking proactive steps to try to align yourself with like-minded thinkers, and even separate yourself from people who not necessarily don't have the same objectives as you do?
I think that's important. First off, I think it was Jim Rohn, one of my favorite sort of inspirational speakers, if you will, said that you're going to be you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with. And if you think about it in those terms, and we can all have our friends that we want to hang out with, but it's important that you are also being proactive in hanging out with people that are going to really, I think, align with your own personal beliefs, your own personal goals. If you're hanging around with people that, and I'm not trying to be disparaging to anybody, but if you're hanging around with people that are just going to the bar every night and not doing anything about making their lives better, then that's probably what it's going to be like for you too. But if you're literally hanging around people that are making their lives better, are working toward making their lives better, and you can actually start to talk about it with them, then I think it really is, it helps people get there much, much more quickly. And to me, that's what a mastermind group is all about, is helping people get there more quickly. And it's one of the things that I do in my Perpetual Wealth Club as well, is, we talk people through not only the mechanics, but also the mental aspects of attaining wealth and creating perpetual wealth for themselves, which is really a big, big part of it. And that's why, my first book was really on that whole mental game, if you will.
What is your personal belief and idea of what wealth is, of when one's achieved it? Because there are many things. If you listen to Tony Robbins, he'll talk about being grateful, being in a grateful spirit and mindset. If you watch, for example, the news or go to a movie, wealth is having the 75-foot yacht and the private jet, or perhaps being surrounded with attractive women. What is wealth? And from your students and what you teach, is wealth different to everybody?
Well, and that's just what I was going to say. I think it starts with what is wealth to you, because what it is to you may not necessarily be what it is for me. And one of the things I start people off with is coming up with what's called an LCF number, their lifestyle cash flow number. And to me, we do have, this is a monetary based world we live in. And so there is going to be some form of monetary wealth that's required if you're going to, have that wealthy lifestyle. And so it comes down to for me, what is that lifestyle that you want? And what is that LCF number for you? For some people, it might be $5,000 a month. For others, it might be 50. For others, it might be, 100,000 or more. And there's no right or wrong answer there. It just needs to be what is inside of you that is going to, feel good about that lifestyle that you're creating. For me, it's a lifestyle. It's really about lifestyle. It's about freedom. Wealth to me is strictly about freedom and setting up a cash flow system for myself that allows me to have the freedom that I want to have every day. And, my wife and I just got back from traveling for the last 10 days. We were down in the Baja of Mexico for part of it, for half of it, and driving these rally cars just on the same course as the Baja 1000. These cars are just absolutely crazy, insane. And then we flew from there over to Mardi Gras in New Orleans and, experienced what goes on, the sort of pretty crazy craziness that goes on over in Mardi Gras. But it was to be able to do that, and that isn't, that's just one little 10-day holiday. But we are constantly sort of in different parts of the world doing different things. And so for me, having that freedom and ability to be able to travel and to do what I want to do when I want to do it with the people I like to do it with is really part and parcel of that. And so that, everybody's a little bit different, but you have to figure out what it is that's important to you in your life and what lifestyle it is that you want to create and have.
Okay, the one of perhaps the biggest decisions of someone's life is if they do decide to do this, that, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get rich, I'm going to have financial prosperity, I'm going to buy my freedom, essentially. They do that. Perpetual wealth, something you help people with, TonyNewmeyer.com. What is the steps? What is perpetual wealth? What should they be thinking about? Because you got to remember, a lot of people, and you talked about it earlier on in their subconscious mind, they believe the only way to wealth, first off, is through Wall Street, and that it takes 30, 40 years, unless, of course, the old saying goes, you got to have money to make money. There's so many things in our head that when somebody, even when they do make that decision, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen, because there's not a very clear path, and I'm sure no two paths are even alike for many people. We all come from different places in our life. We all know different people. We have different passions. Maybe someone's very, very passionate about, building a mining company, or somebody is an author or a writer. There's just so many different ways you can get rich. So when you have a student at Perpetual Wealth, what are the actions to take for an individual once they've made that decision to become rich?
Okay, well, let me start with a couple of points. First off, defining perpetual wealth, which is increasing your cash flow and growing your net worth continuously, consistently, and most important, passively. And so when you start to think about creating your wealth along those terms of passive income, I think that's where we start. And everybody can do it a little bit differently. However, what I do is and one thing I think it's important to realize is you can attain a good level of perpetual wealth in, I believe, 3 to 7 years. You can take that 40-year plan that you were talking about, but why not condense it into 3 to 7 years so that you can actually enjoy the rest of your life and not be having to work unless you really want to. But in doing that, first thing, one of the most important things people need to do is have some form of extra cash flow coming in. One of the things that I advocate is building an online business, because it's fairly simple to build an online business. You can start making a few hundred or a few $1,000s a month online in fairly short order without having to kill yourself in doing so. And then from there, take that cash flow and either put it eventually into cash flow real estate, so that's because real estate is really one of the cornerstones, because it is ever increasing in its value and in the rent in which you can receive from it. And so that really starts to fulfill some of the criteria of actually increasing your cash flow and growing your net worth continuously and passively. And so that's number one. The other thing that I do quite a bit of as well, and I know you do, is a lot of small cap speculating. And this is an area that I talk to people about and in the program, and show them how to do, because I feel that it's one of those ways that you can exponentially grow your net worth with some simple, proven techniques of knowing how to invest, and also, of course, knowing what to invest in. And so it's very important that people learn how to grow their cash flow and grow their net worth as quickly as possible. And then those other steps that I've sort of mentioned already, it's going to be getting that mindset in place, because that is really, really critical. And especially when you're doing any sort of investing, because people are not really clear on, I guess, the mental attributes of investing or speculating in small cap stocks, or even investing in real estate. So it's very important to have that mindset in place, create extra cash flow, invest the extra cash flow, and start working toward creating that LCF number, creating that lifestyle cash flow that you want, so you can have the freedom that you want. So I break it down really into a number of steps for people, but it depends on what route they want to go. If they do want to start an online business, or maybe they already have a significant amount of cash flow, so they don't need the online business. You don't have to go that route if they don't want to.
Sure. Now, if let's say somebody has a job today, I mean, is that should they still contact you? Is this something they consider? Do they have to have a business?
No, not at all. What we do is we work with people where they are, and if they have a job, then that's really probably a great place to start, because if they do have a job, I wouldn't suggest quitting it right away either, and until you've got a number of things in place. But I work with everybody that is really strictly wanting to work online, people that have jobs and want to do it part-time, or really people that are looking to learn about investing and creating wealth in other ways.
One of the things my wife and I did when we really, we very concentrated on building wealth, was we were extreme savers, and we lived dramatically below our means. Is that something you recommend? Because I know a lot of people, there's some people on YouTube and stuff where they're like, look, you don't have to have a high savings rate. You don't have to live below your means. You just need to make more money. And I think of course we all want to make more money. We all want to try to make more money. Do you recommend, or do you see some a common denominator with wealthy people that they have a high savings rate?
Well, I think it's going to be for the people that are there already. I'd say the answer is probably yes. But getting there is going to be a real decision that people need to make in terms of, okay, are they prepared to, give up the fancy car, to live below their means for a while? And I think I've done that myself. And so I'm certainly understand it. I'm an advocate of it. And at the same time, some people are just not prepared to do it. And they're just looking, okay, no, I just want to make more money. Show me how to make more money first. And then, then I'll start to have a higher savings rate. And, I can go either way, but I do think that, let me put it this way. It's critical that you are spending less than you're making if you're going to attain wealth in any way, really. Unless you win the lottery or something, really you need to have a process in place to really create that wealth that you're after.
Tony, did you always know that you would be wealthy? They asked Warren Buffett one time he really he's like, I just always knew. Can you say that? Did you feel it? Did you know it?
I told my mom at 10 I was going to be rich. So she was very encouraging, and she was, of the mindset that, us boys can do whatever it is that we set out to do. And, I was born when she was 16 years old, and she had my two brothers by the time she was 20 and on her own. And so she had a pretty strong mindset of her own to really help give us the direction and I guess the fortitude to really just go forth and do it. And yes, but I've always known that was just one of the things that had to happen. Not being poor wasn't an option.
Sure. And is there anything that you've experienced? Because everybody's always out there looking for the silver bullet. Is there any specific things you can say that would hyperdrive wealth, hyperdrive cash flow, hyperdrive net worth?
Well, I think small cap investing is knowing it, getting good at it, and understanding it is probably one of the best ways to do it. Unless you're going to create a significant online business and you're going to really put the time and effort into doing that, I think that's doable as well. But really exponentially growing your net worth is, I do it through and have done it through small cap speculating and investing.
Sure. And for cash flow, you like real estate. Anything else besides real estate? Do you like big blue chip dividend paying stocks like McDonald's and IBM, or is that not something you go for cash flow?
No, I have them. I do in dividend stocks as well, some, but typically more on the real estate side. I prefer real estate.
Yeah, no, and you're Canadian. Are you buying just in Canada, or have you diversified regionally as well?
I own property in 3 countries right now, but typically I would stay with for myself in terms of cash flow. I'm looking at Canada, United States.
Sure. Now, when it comes to the building blocks, let's say somebody comes into a large chunk of money, either from an investment, from real estate flip, inheritance, whatever. There's this rush people want to allocate money as fast as they can, and typically they allocate it to a financial advisor. Do you use a financial advisor? If you come into let's say you just sold a micro cap stock or a small cap stock, how do you treat allocation?
Well, I think there's 2 parts to that answer. First off, if somebody isn't used to having money and they come into a large sum of money, whether it be through inheritance or winning the lottery or a big stock gain or something like that, I think they need to really be aware of their personal mental mindset, because as you likely know, over 70% of the people that win the lottery are pretty much broke within just a few years. And one of the reasons for this is because they just truly never believed in themselves as having a lot of money. They wanted it and people want it, but they never really internally believed it. And this is also goes back to what I was talking about in terms of the subconscious being aligned with your conscious. And you need to be sure that you have got the internal mental mindset that you are in fact worthy of that money and you are a wealthy person. And then from there, once you have got that set and you have that millionaire mindset, then I think you can start to say, okay, where do I allocate this money? And of course, for a lot of people, they just won't have a clue initially and probably do need some help. I don't have a financial advisor myself. I've got a fair number of people around me that I can call on if I have a question in those regards. But that said, I think that if somebody, for a lot of people, having the right financial advisor, and that's really difficult to find sometimes, and you want to be sure you interview them very closely and carefully, and don't take the first one that comes along if you are looking for a financial advisor. But I think it's important that people get a financial education. I think that's one of the things I do in my daily emails is I'll educate people on different aspects of finances and so on, and I let people know that, look, if you want to become wealthy and maintain that wealth, it's really important that you get a financial education. And that might just be as little as, listening to financial shows. There's one that I listen to virtually every Saturday here in Canada that, talks about Canadian stuff, but also worldwide. And there are other things like Armstrong, Martin Armstrong. I follow him very closely. Because I get my financial education, and I've done it for so long now, I've got a fair degree of depth of knowledge in the whole field. But I think it's really important people get that financial education so that they can maintain and grow wealth long term.
Sure. And I want to ask you, what do you think about these? There's a lot of peer-to-peer different cash flow ideas out there now. There's Peer Street, where you can buy First Trust deeds. There's Lending Club. There's Prosper. I don't know if it's big in Canada. In the United States, it's kind of it's getting really big. It's very popular with millennials. Is that something that you've tested the waters in?
I have to say I'm fairly ignorant when it comes to those. I certainly know of them and know people that are involved in a few of them. I'm still a little cautious of them, and consequently, I haven't really delved into getting to know them as well as maybe I should at some point.
Sure. Yeah. No. I've tested the waters with them. Look, guys like us, we're always looking for new ways for cash flow, for passive income. One thing that, when my wife and I were building our wealth, like you had mentioned, the vehicles. I drove an '03 Altima. She drove a 2011 Yukon. We lived in a home that was, my goodness, was probably like 2 months of income, 3 months of income. We were living way below our means. For young people today, what is your advice to them? I mean, how should they go about this? Because I think many people are going to sign up for hey, let me finance my car. Let me finance the most, the maximum affordable home I can buy. And let me finance, a vacation or two on a credit card. For those people who are under 30, what's your advice for them? Major decisions they can make now that'll pay off big.
Well, one of them is, as I've just mentioned, get that financial education for yourself. Start to learn and understand how to make money, because handing it over to someone else, no one is going to has more interest in your money than you do, and so just be very, very careful with your money. Number one. Number two, I would say be sure that you set yourself up so that you have extra cash flow. Don't finance yourself to the eyeballs. Start taking the extra cash flow as much as you can and start investing it, whether it be into cash flow real estate or into small cap speculative stocks. But either way, figure out what's important to you, and come up with that lifestyle that you want. I mean, I guess what it is make a conscious, concerted effort to think about where it is you'd like to be in 10 years, in 5 years, and what are you going to do today to actually start to get there. And don't worry about having the great car so much as you do right now. Think about that for down the road once you have perpetual wealth and you've got that cash flow coming in a passive way for yourself. And at that time, that's where you can get the fancy cars and the boat and all the fun stuff.
Once you're all squared away.
It shouldn't take that long. That's the thing. It doesn't have to take that long. It doesn't have to be the 40-year plan.
All right. Our guest today, Tony Neumeyer of Perpetual Wealth. Everybody, I'll have the link for you guys. So basically, if you guys are interested in having Tony advise you, having him coach you, this can be done. Tony is accessible, Perpetual Wealth, TonyNeumeyer.com. I also recommend you guys buy the book, The 7-Minute